This is the devlog for Abstract Violence for June 26, 2022. This week I mainly worked on the menus and getting that integrated into the game with the new map. Menu work is very annoying for me, but it is satisfying when I'm able to actually get something to work. Like this credit zoom, works nice, looks decent, could be a bit faster maybe, but there's all these little things that just don't quite look right with the menu, which I'm going to have to work on. Of course, this is a pre-alpha, so it's just sort of the ideas that work, but for example there, it's the first time you do it, it's very awkward, but the second time it works fine, and I'm not totally sure why, since it should be the same, but we're just going to jump right into the gameplay here. So after a brief loading screen, we are into the game. This is basically a Battle Royale type game before those existed. The main inspiration for it was Kirby's Air Ride. But the basic idea is you're dropped into a large map, which has different items spawning randomly around to help enhance your abilities. There are also enemy combatants here, so there's 4 total players. You can see we're now fighting a black player, and when you shoot them, they pop out different power-ups. These enhance things like the damage of your weapons, fire rate, but also the attributes of the player like movement speed, or jump height, and similar things, as well as reload and other miscellaneous things. When you take damage, you lose these attributes randomly. You can see now I've got a very little amount of health, but that's another thing that the upgrades can enhance. Then we have the weapon system, so these black boxes have different upgrades. For example, this one gave me an expanded magazine, so now I have double the size of the normal ammunition that it can fit. So after I reload here, and you'll see there is an active reload thing, where if you push the reload button again when the bar hits the other bar, then it just instantly reloads. This is of course inspired by Gears of War or similar, although there's no damage buff at the moment. I've considered implementing it, but I don't want to sort of add too many systems to what is a small part of the gameplay and not sort of a core part of it. You can see right here we jammed. As you acquire more upgrades to your gun, there is a higher chance to jam. That means that there's a sort of risk reward with getting more upgrades. It's about deciding whether it's worth to enhance the fire rate, for example. Here we died. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. There was a strange glitch that I'm still looking at, but then we spawn again on the map. We spawned, unfortunately, in the midst of these 2 enemies, but we're able to take them out and then collect the rewards. And that's sort of, there's always this risk versus reward, because when you're taking damage, you're losing attributes, but damaging enemies gives you a large amount of attributes, so it's just a balance. Here we picked up a grenade launcher after being shot in the back, and that's another thing that I've added this week is a rocket jump type function. So you fire it out, and then sort of run into the explosion, and it gives you a decent boost up. In this map, we actually encountered quite a few more enemies than normal. The grenade also obviously does a decent amount of damage, but as it is fairly large, coming back to the point, it's a fairly large map to explore, so it's actually possible to have rounds where you encounter no enemies or very few, but in this one we happen to encounter a few. So you can tell what the upgrades do, but you can also just shoot the box, and it will give you a random amount of these base upgrades instead of a change for your gun. So there's always a default option. If there's nothing that you like, you still get something, generally speaking. I'm not sure, the boxes are supposed to spawn 2 to 4 upgrades, but sometimes none spawn at all, and that's another glitch that I just hadn't figured out. It doesn't make any sense with how it's coded, but it'll all come in time, I suppose. So there are also random events. We just saw it said a massive box spawned, and after collecting this upgrade, I'm going to head over to where it is. If you take a look at the minimap, you can see a giant red splotch, which is where the box is spawned, and it has a large amount of HP, but when killed spawns like 20 different upgrades, so many that you can't collect them in time before they disappear. One other element that I haven't talked about yet is all of the objects in the game, which are not textured at the moment, but are called graffiti objects, which is basically if you shoot them, they get colored to your player color. And that's the same with enemies and everyone. It's also a game mode after the game that we'll talk about later. So with upgrades, there is a small chance that it will spawn a super upgrade. So there are 3 of them in the game at the moment. One of them is plus projectile, where basically every time you shoot, it shoots twice. So it doubles your damage output and also increases certain things like flaming ammo gets much better and similar as they stack up much faster. Here we have the stats screen. It has slowly rotating the guns as well as the stats that were collected through the game. And then we have the stadium or event after the main collection element. So here we have a deathmatch. It's just a fight to the death. You versus the enemies. In single player it's 1 versus 3, but in multiplayer it's obviously however people want to team up or fight. So after the main stadium or the main collection element, there's always a different minigame. At the moment there are 5 types. There's race, deathmatch, graffiti, like a box game where you shoot different boxes. There's a hide and seek variant and then a just spawn a bunch variant. And then there is a drawing one where you have to draw with your gun on a canvas. We'll only see a couple in this sample of gameplay, but you can see there's also a score, which still hasn't been fully implemented, like how it's going to look in the in-game, but so now we're going to increase the level of the CPUs. This makes them slightly more difficult. It gives them more speed, damage, and also increases the speed that they level up with. And we'll change the colors, and then we'll start the game. We can change the time as well, but for now we'll just go with a standard 5-minute. And then this is going to be the eventual game options. You can see here's a list of the different stadiums or exhibitions that you can play at the end of the game, and you'll be able to choose what types you want to play through. And it's the same with weather, which is not implemented in this build but will be soon, and random events as well. It's all a work in progress, but you can see sort of what we eventually want to do. Also, the loading screen changes colors based off the player colors. So again, we're back into the game. I got sort of interrupted in the middle of it, but for the their black upgrades is what the color of the paint is. So in addition to projectile, there is a double jump, which gives the player another jump, which can be quite significant when exploring around. And then there's one that just gives plus to all the stats. Then there's this water. If you jump into it, splash, you get respawned back on the map. And that's a way to sort of move around quickly, theoretically, as it can transport you to the other half. There's sort of 2 main halves of the map at the moment, divided by the wall. So at this point we're exploring this half, which has the castle. So these are all monuments. I can't recall, this one's a Scottish one, but here we just jumped into the water again, and we've respawned into this little area in the middle of this wall. And so we're going to head to the other half of the map with the Acropolis and similar. So here we have the max speed event. We can see it makes the player go incredibly fast and you can zoom around, but it can be difficult to control. At the moment it doesn't change the enemy speed, but again, that's something that will be changed soon. So here we have another box, and deciding what we want. Flashlight gives a lot of fire rate, but minus damage. So it can be disadvantageous with lots of upgrades, as it is more often to jam, as the more you shoot, the higher the likelihood that it'll jam is. Here I'm looking for the light blue enemy, as I saw them here before they shot me, but I'm not sure exactly where they've gone. We can see we jammed there, but we're going to kill this box and open another one. And we're going to grab expanded mag here, just because with lots of fire rate, you don't want to be reloading too often. So you can either try to expand your magazine or try to increase the speed of reload rates. Both of those are fairly reasonable to do. And here we're just trying to lure this green one out, try to get some damage on them, and then here we found a damage up, which is very important, of course. If you're going for high attack speed, any sort of damage buff is a higher percentage gain than it is for a low fire rate. Just gonna head up the stairs to this little area, and there's a number of item boxes that spawn guaranteed throughout the level. Eventually it'll be not guaranteed, there'll be areas which could have them, but for now it's all of them, and we can see we just chose to grab power-ups from that one, and we're going to travel around, get more upgrades, and that's sort of the base of how the game works. The goal is to always have something to work towards, always something that you can see that is an upgrade that you can head towards and get. So again, here we didn't find anything we want, but we get a damage up as well as health and luck, so it's fairly useful. And here we got rocket, so there are a few different ammo where you can change it. There's crossbow bolts or rocket launchers. So now we have an extremely fast firing rocket launcher, which is very powerful, and then can also enable rocket jumps. Now, it's a bit difficult on non-straight surfaces to rocket jump, but we can see the amount of damage we do to enemies is extremely significant. You can see you can get to places you just couldn't before, but it's a little bit fiddly. And I'm going to try to increase just the lenience of it, make it a bit easier to get around, but once you sort of master it, it is a significant increase to mobility. So we're at the top of the mountain here, and there's another guaranteed spawn over here of a item box. So we're going to go and collect it. You can see that boxes are affected by gravity and rockets push them back quite far, which can be unfortunate, but and here we have jam proof, which is an upgrade that makes us able to not jam, which is a huge upgrade when we're so fast firing, but you can see we actually jammed twice trying to get it, but finally get it, and now the match is over. Just gonna spray some rockets around. And here we have the upgrade scene. We can see we've got lots of jump and fire rate, but we're gonna move on to the exhibit, which in this case is graffiti. So basically, we're trying to color as many objects in our color as we can. Now with fast firing rockets, this is actually extremely easy. You can see you can just spray and pray and get a huge number of them very quickly. We can see the enemy is trying to shoot them as their color. There's green, but we just launched the rockets, and basically when you shoot an object, that gives it how much HP. So by default they'll have 10 HP, you shoot it for 20 damage, and now it's 20 HP. The next person has to shoot it a couple times, and then if they shoot it, it'll have 30 or so, or 35 depending on their damage. So you just slowly build up the HP of these objects and claim them as your own. We can see we have a very good weapon for this sort of map, so we've coated most of it here with our color. And at the end screen we got 58, which is a solid amount. And we got 2 stars because we've won 2 events this playthrough. And that is what we've been working on this week. We're just taking a look at the other menu options here that are basically still to be implemented. But as I said, menu work is slow going, so we'll see about that. For the next week, I'm going to work on adding more content, specifically more item upgrades and more random events. I hope you have a nice day.